Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be talking all about how to laugh at what scares you the most. I know this is Halloween, and so I figured let's talk about fear because, um, that's a lot of what today is actually all about is making fun of the things that we're afraid of. Hi, Joelle. Good to see you. And if you're here, yeah, feel free to say hi. I'm live in YouTube. I'm live here on Instagram. I would love to say hi and hear how you're doing. So let me know if you're here. Um, Hi, Joelle. So, the first thing I want to ask you is what scares you the most? If you take a minute and look over your life right now, if you look at your relationship with your work, if you look at your relationship with your partner, your best friend, your acquaintances, um, hi there. Um, what scares you the most? What is it about your home life that scares you? What is it that scares you when you think about the future? Hi, Lisa. What scares you about the path that you're on right now? I know for me, I'm gonna just share a bit about my experience. What scared me for a long time were things like, if I do this, I won't be loved. If I decide that I want to change careers, like my biggest fear is that I'll find out I'm not capable. I'm not capable of making change. So I'm curious, I want to hear from you. What are the things that scare you right now in your life? Because what we'll do today, if you are willing to share, and I know some of you are willing to share, you might need to just sit with yourself for a minute and then think about it and then see what you want to share. But I want to work with things that are really alive and present for you right now because I think that's what will be the most helpful. Of course, I can pull upon examples from my own life, but yeah, I would rather hear from you about what is scaring you. So the thing about what scares us is that very often these fears that we have are just motivating our actions all day, every day. You're not weird or flawed if this is what's happening with you or for you. This is literally how humans have evolved over time, is to basically prioritize and weigh the things that scare us far heavier in terms of what motivates our action rather than the things that bring us joy and pleasure, because that's how our brains evolved over time. Hi there. Good to see you. Um, so, if you are motivated by the things that you're afraid of, first of all, I just want you to know that that is so normal. And especially as highly sensitive people, which many of you who are here identify as being a highly sensitive person, this is especially so. Like your nervous system is more attuned, more sensitive to all the different things that are happening in your environment. And hi, Jimmy. Good to see you. And so, therefore, as a highly sensitive person, you actually might be even slightly a little bit more motivated by fear than by someone who isn't a highly sensitive person, for example. Hi, Gab. Nice to see you. So, if you're here and if you're joining, please tell me what in your life scares you right now. What scares you the most? Because we're going to get into this and kind of begin to break down fears that people commonly have. So, and actually, I'm going to switch. I've got some notes over here that I just want to pull from really quickly. Um, let's see. So, I think, never mind. I'm not going to look at that right now. Okay, so my stories. Let's dig into what I was afraid of for a long time. I stayed in a career for a really long time that I 2 careers actually, that I just thought to myself, like, I'm not capable of learning. I'm not capable of doing anything different. So, for those of you who don't know me, hi, Violette. Um, Good to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, I was a violinist as my first career, and I had spent my whole life playing violin. I started playing violin when I was 3, and music was like the theme of my entire family, basically. So, that was such an entrenched identity for so long that, like, Kate's only good at music, and of course Kate's gonna, be a professional violinist for her whole life, and of course this is just how it's gonna be. So, when I started having glimmerings, uh, as I did when I was in college, I started having these, like, kind of intuitive visions, like literal visions of me not doing violin. Like, I had visions of myself on stages. I had visions of myself. I'm gonna silence my phone. I should have done that earlier. That's okay. I had visions of myself on stages speaking. I had a vision of myself doing some kind of healing work. And I sort of had these like intuitive, calm curiosities that, like, I would love to learn more about humans and how they get insight and how they learn and how they grow. Like, that just fascinated me. And the wall that came slamming down whenever those little intuitive hunches would start to kind of sprinkle, not sprinkle, like, go out, you know what I mean? Um, it would be like, you could never do that. You're not smart enough. You're not capable enough. And underneath, the thing that I was really afraid of is, if I change, if I change, then I won't be loved. Because again, that was such for me. And again, maybe some of you here can identify with this. I grew up in a highly narcissistic, highly dysfunctional family system. We looked functional on the outside, but it was definitely highly dysfunctional on the inside. Like, lots of secrecy. Nobody was really allowed to see inside our family. Um, my dad dealt with addiction issues. My mom dealt with chronic pain. Both of them were probably personality disordered. Like, for sure, my dad had narcissistic personality disorder. So I I really do think at a young age, I really glommed on to the music thing because this was the unlived life of my parents. They had wanted to be artists. And they were like kind of unconsciously already like shoving me in that direction so that they could feel good about themselves. And because I was really sensitive to my environment, I just fed right into that. So by the time I was, 18, and I was starting to have these little glimmerings of like, oh, I think I want to do something else, I had already reinforced so deeply that the only way to get love is by doing this music thing. So, what scared me the most at that time was this idea of, if I change, they won't love me anymore. And so, again, I want you to be really curious for yourself. If you look at your life right now, where are you feeling little tugs, little glimmerings of something new where you're like, I would love to explore that? I just have had this like intuitive feeling that I'm like meant to be a scientist, or I have this intuitive feeling that I am meant to start a garden. I have this intuitive feeling that I want to learn more about winemaking. Um, Not being the best scares me. Yes. Because what are you afraid of that will happen if you're not the best? What will happen? I want you you don't have you could share it here, and I invite you to, because I think it would be a good dialogue, and it'll certainly, I know many people will resonate with what you just shared, but, at least answer that question for yourself, not being the best. What scares me about not why? I won't love myself. Yeah, I mean, that is legit. Again, like, being the best. If I'm not the best, then blank. I won't love myself. If I'm not the best, then I won't love myself. If I'm not the best, then I won't be loved by others. If I'm not the best, then I'm not worthy of any goodness. Like, again, I'm just throwing out some options for you and for anyone else who's watching this either now or later that can resonate with what we're discussing. But it could be a little bit different for everyone. But I know this one of like not being the best, uh, being like a major fear, is a motivator for so many people. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that. Um, okay, so let me see. I'm going to bring it back to my own example, and then I'm going to keep going with the like, I won't love myself, or I can't love myself if I'm not the best. I'm actually going to write that down. I can't love myself if I'm not the best. And mine was back from the violin days: if I change, they won't love me anymore. And so here's the thing. If I change, they won't love me anymore. Can I absolutely know that that's true? At the time, I couldn't have known that for sure. Um, and this is a common thought for me even today. This is a common refrain. I know that some of these thoughts that scare us often loop on repeat, regardless of the situation, regardless of who we're relating with. It's just this kind of like messed up mantra that just keeps going and going. It's almost like putting us in a trance. Um, the repetition of this thought just in the background. And so even now, sometimes I still think to myself, and I work with myself all the time on this. This is why I'm like grateful that I'm a coach, is because not only do I get to help other people, but I get to use all these tools with myself as well. So if I'm thinking to myself right now, if I change, like for example, changing my hair recently, I'm like, people are going to think you're so weird. There's millions of people who dye their hair in the world. I already dye my hair from my natural hair color, which is blonde, believe it or not. So, but these fears are not logical. That's the other thing. It's not logical, and it doesn't mean that there isn't still some truth there that deserves to be taken care of. So, if I change, they won't love me anymore. Can I absolutely know that that's true in a court of law? Um, in the example that you provided, um, I can't love myself if I'm not the best, or I won't love myself if I'm not the best. Is it 100% true? Like, can you know that for certain? 100% without a doubt? Like, there's no universe or alternate timeline in which like that is impossible? And I know for me, when I ask myself this question, this is extremely confronting. Sometimes, depending on my state that I'm in, it can be very confronting. And so, I really, if you notice yourself being like, "Ugh," and you feel your shoulders go up and you feel yourself constrict, all of that is valid. This is challenging, something that's deeply entrenched and deeply practiced. Because again, if this thought has been just floating around in your brain for years or decades, it's just a well practiced neural pathway, thinking this thought over and over again, over and over again. I can't love myself if I'm not the best. If I change, they won't love me anymore, on repeat. So it's natural if you feel some constriction. And I'm going to invite you to redirect your attention back to curiosity. What could it be like if it were impossible to think this thought? What would it be like? How would that change how I show up in the situation where I actually want to be behaving a little bit differently than I am? What new actions would I take? How would I feel? How would I act differently in my relationships? What projects would I decide to move forward on or not move forward on? How would I conduct myself um, through my workday, at night, on the weekends? Like, how does this ripple out? And another really helpful thing to reflect on, almost like a meditation, is what is the impact of me continuing to believe this thought and continuing to not redirect, not pattern interrupt? How does this influence how I show up right now? For me, I know that if I am believing, if I change, they won't love me anymore. What that means is that I stay exactly where I am. I don't pursue the things that feel exciting. I don't pursue the things that bring me energy. I don't pursue the things that just help me feel a love for life, because when I follow my natural curiosity, when I follow my instinct about like the types of new hairstyles I want to explore, the new types of fashion I want to explore, or oh, I'd love to learn this modality and incorporate it into my coaching practice, or I want to learn how to, produce this kind of a song with this kind of an effect, whatever it is. If I don't allow myself to follow that thread, I am inviting like stagnancy and what I call like slow motion death into the present moment with me. And that influences how I show up in my partnership. It I start getting bitter and resentful about the things that my partner isn't doing around the house that I think he should be doing. I stop having the motivation to actually keep my own environment nice and clean. I don't pursue new friendships and new relationships, and I stay, in relationships that maybe don't help fit anymore. Really, if I were going to expand out and follow all the things that I know I actually want to be following. So, first, I is this process of like observing. Hi, Annie. It's good to see you. It's so great to have you here. I'm so glad you're here. Um, so when you are taking stock of the thought that is underneath what scares you and or what does actually scare you, what I am going to invite you to do is do this meditative process of seeing, if I continue to believe this thought, what is its impact in my life? How does that ripple out into all the rest of my relationships, into my work projects, my personal projects, my spiritual life? Like, what's the cost essentially of continuing to believe this thought that scares me? And then the next thing to do is think about the ripple effect of the absence of this thought on repeat in your life, and how would it change how you feel in your body? How would it change how you show up in your relationships? How would it change how you treat yourself? Um, and so then the first or the next thing that I want to talk about is some real practical, tactical ways to begin rehearsing and or shifting like the patterns in your brain to make it so that you don't really believe that thought anymore, which then just actually makes you feel so incredibly free that you can do whatever the fuck you want, basically. I have literally had the experience after using some of these tools of laughing, like legitimately laughing at the thought that I had on repeat for a long time. So if you're here and you haven't, or you just joined, think about Um, Try and find a thought that scares you. Like, what are you afraid of? What are you wanting to do in your life, but you're not taking action on it? And ask yourself, like, why am I not taking action on this? Like, what am I afraid is going to happen? Um, because if you're here and you're willing to share, I would love to help support you and like work with the thoughts that are happening in your life right now. So, the first thing that I'm going to talk with you about is a tool that I don't actually remember the name of, but let's call it prepending. Okay? So, you have this thought that's been on repeat, keeping you in a trance in your brain for a long time. For me, one of these thoughts could be if I change, they won't love me anymore. I'm going to invite you to prepend that thought, insert your thought, of course, with I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. And I'm going to actually like repeat this out loud like I would like you to a couple of times. And you're literally going to say it out loud. Saying it out loud is a really important part of this process because of how language is like processed in our brain. And this prepending shifts how we relate to the language that's in our brain. So I'll repeat it 3 times. I'm having the thought, if I change, they won't love me anymore. I'm having the thought, if I change, they won't love me anymore. I'm having the thought, if I change, they won't love me anymore. And then notice how you feel in your body. I went from having a little bit of constriction in the front of my body to having this feeling of release. And then all of a sudden becoming much more aware of the back of my body, like right around my mid ribs, just more sensation there. Okay. So I'm already taking stock of that change. I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. Hi, Reagan. Good to see you. And the next thing, we're going to prepend it with another thing. So again, take that thought that is driving your actions, that thought that scares you. And my example is, if I change, they won't love me anymore. And now you're going to prepend it with, I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. 3 times out loud. Here we go. I notice I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. I notice I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. I notice I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. At this point, I'm like paying attention to my body. I'm like, this just sounds like nothing, like a nothing burger. You know what I mean? Like, this just sounds like nonsense to me. I notice I'm having the thought that if I change, they won't love me anymore. Even my affect, you can tell I'm like, if I change, they won't love me anymore. And that's so already like a real visceral shift. I remember when I did this with dishes, I had, I'm going to tell you, like, I had such a, I mean, I still have this bad habit, but I don't have the shame about it anymore, which I'm telling you, that is really the key to habit change in the long run is getting rid of your shame around your habits. So, brief story. This baby kitten right here, Pepper, who you can't really see because she's off to the side. She is an upstairs cat. We have a gate that separates upstairs and downstairs. It's a whole story. Um, so, but she's upstairs. And so when I go downstairs for any long period of time, she gets sad sometimes. She's like, oh, I just want to be near you, as evidenced by her sitting on this poof like all the time whenever I'm on coaching calls or talking with clients. She's pretty much always here on this poof with me. And whenever I move around the upstairs, she like follows me around because she just wants to be my like nearby buddy. That's her style as a cat. So what that means is that I eat my meals upstairs very often. So I bring, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Honestly, most days I bring it upstairs. What that means is that after I get done eating, I'm like, okay, let's work. I'm excited. Let's go. And then I have dishes and I leave them. And then I usually leave them. I have a bathroom right over here and I leave them on the counter of the bathroom. Well, I can tell you that for years, I had an incredible amount of shame around leaving, things piled up or clutter or dishes. And the thing is, with shame, or with fear, like these intense emotions that we usually want to run away from ultimately, when these intense emotions are like so alive in your body, there's no space, there's no room for you to actually change your habit. You need to address and kind of dispel the charge of the emotion that's alive inside of you at least a little bit, reduce the intensity of it first before you can attempt any kind of a habit change. Because if intense fear is fueling you, either into doing something or not doing something, or if intense shame is fueling you into doing something or not doing something, in my case, doing the dishes or not doing the dishes, then just going to be so much harder to change. So I remember I did this process on a thought related to my pile of dishes. I'm trying to even remember what it was. Like, I don't can't see, that's the thing. This thing that drove my life for so long after I did this exercise, I'm like, I literally can't remember what it was anymore because it's irrelevant. It's just not even relevant to my life. I think it was something like something like, I don't know, you'll never be able to get your life together. It was something like that. You'll never be able to get your life together, or you're just like your dad. Because my dad would sometimes leave piles of dishes around, and then he would be really angry at himself and then angry at everyone else when he would do that. So I think I worked on those two thoughts, and I ran it through this process of pre-pending. So I'm having the thought that blank. Say it 3 times out loud. I notice I'm having the thought that blank, saying that 3 times out loud. And by the time I was done, I was like, "What?" I'm looking at this pile of dishes. It's the same exact circumstance. I'm staring at this pile of dishes and I feel nothing. I feel like neutral, glowing goodness inside of me because I no longer have this intense shame story. Um, going on repeat endlessly. So, with the example, I can't love myself if I'm not the best, or I won't love myself if I'm not the best. This is exactly what I would recommend that you do. Prepend. And then I'm going to actually try out this thought with another technique, which is putting a thought to a song. This is another thing that you would think, oh, that's so simple. That won't work. It does work. It truly does. So I'm going to put, um, I won't love myself if I'm not the best. I'm going to put that thought um, to the tune of Happy Birthday. Okay. So here we go. I won't love myself if I'm not the best. I won't love myself ever again if I'm not the best. Okay, so that's an example of how I would do it if I were you, and I encourage you to try this out yourself. Try it. I'm telling you that putting your shitty AF thought to a song also creates that same sensation inside of my body as the pre-pending does, which is all of a sudden there isn't this like hook of tension inside of me anymore. And it creates a little bit more space to choose something different. And again, with clients, I've seen clients like straight up laugh at the thought after they use any one of these techniques. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about is that sometimes it's not abnormal for, especially if you've had a thought like this on repeat for a long time. Um, I'm not sure how to say your name, but hi, Samika. I'm saying hello to you. Good to have you here. If you've had this thought on repeat, there's a little bit of like emotional inertia, I'm gonna say. Um, that can sometimes carry over, or you might not have even realized like how intense that emotional inertia was until you get a little bit more distance between yourself and the thought. So let's say oh, what's another thought? Like, I'll never succeed. Okay. That's a thought that I know has floated through my brain at various times. I'll never succeed. If I have been thinking this for a long time with intensity, I might, use the prepending, or I might do the happy birthday, like put it to a song type of technique. And I might all of a sudden feel a flood of emotion. Like maybe I really want to cry. Maybe I feel like very jittery and shivery, um, and kind of like creepy in my back and in my body. There is nothing wrong with that. I just want to tell you that that is normal. And that is essentially your nervous system finally feels safe enough. Like you've created just a little bit more capacity for your body to naturally move through and express whatever like natural response it had wanted to have as a result of you thinking that thought on repeat. So shivering and kind of like these creepy feelings in your spine can just be like extra sympathetic fight or flight type energy of like maybe you've wanted to this thought has made you want to run away from everything. Maybe this thought has made you want to like punch somebody in the face or something. I don't know. But so allow yourself like whatever your body wants to do. If you're feeling like those shiveries or a lot of energy moving through you, whew, I'm even feeling a little shivery myself as I think about it, but just allow that to move through your body. Just give it 30 seconds, a minute. You might be judging yourself and thinking, I look like such a weirdo. Like, I don't understand what my body is doing. That is fine. You don't have to understand intellectually. This is something that you just need to experience. And so, if you can suspend your disbelief and suspend your judgment for like 30 seconds and just let your body do what it needs to do, even with crying, like crying is a release of energy. And so if you do these techniques and then you feel this big wave of tears and of emotion move through, I'll never succeed. I notice I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. I notice I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. I notice I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. I notice I'm having the thought, I'll never succeed. Using myself as an example, I'm sitting with that, and let's see, what song could I put this to? Like, I need a song. I'll do Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. Um, I will never succeed. I'll never succeed. I'll never succeed. I'll never, I will never succeed. I will never succeed. I'll never succeed. Okay, I'm just singing like sillily right now. Let's see, how do I feel in my body after I do that? Yeah, I do feel a little shivery. I do feel some emotion coming up. And just like allowing yourself to be with that emotion as it arises. Maybe you can like hold yourself or touch yourself gently in a way that feels supportive and loving. And that can actually help the emotion pass through. So, I just wanted to give you a little bit more of an example of how to work with that, because I know that sometimes, not all the time, I would say in most cases when people use these tools, they honestly just feel kind of amazing right away. Um, and they're like, wow, I can't believe I like bought into that thought for so long. I literally feel nothing when I think about it. But in a handful of cases, there can be strong emotion that comes up. And so just take a couple minutes to be with yourself, allow that natural reaction to process through your body, and then you have more space now to choose a different action. You get to choose to not believe, I can't love myself if I'm not the best. Then it creates more space to think, if that's not true, what else could be true? Maybe I can love myself if I'm not the best. What about, like, I can't love myself if I'm not the worst? Sometimes it's fun to, like, play around with, like, all sorts of different options of, like, what could I believe instead? And, like, how could that be equally true? Because again, we're working to essentially retrain your neural pathways of this thought that you've been believing over and over and over again. It's just like muscle memory for tying your shoes, riding a bike, learning how to play an instrument, learning how to kick a soccer ball. At first you have to consciously practice the new thing that you want to do, and then eventually it moves into your unconscious. And so this is exactly what we're doing with your beliefs. We're looking for other things that could be just as true. And let's face it, that's most of the things that are in our brain could be anything other than what we're thinking. Often what we're thinking is a result of our conditioning. It is not literally facts that are provable in a court of law. Um, and so, therefore, now that you have a little bit more space around this thing that you've been terrified of that's been driving you, you get to begin to think, okay, what else could be true that I can look for evidence for? What else could be true that I can practice? For me, let's go with the I'll never succeed thought. What about the thought I'll always succeed? What's the proof for that? I'll always succeed. I'll always succeed when I try. I'll always succeed when I choose to love myself in the moment, whatever that looks like. I'll always succeed. I mean, even the things that I've gone through in the past that have been incredibly challenging, soul crushing, devastating, where I've literally wanted to die in the past, all of those places that I've been have helped shape me and make me into the person that I am today, that can hold what I am capable of holding, both in what I want to create for my own life and in the kind of support that I can give my clients. So, do you see how I'm finding proof, both present and past and future, possibly, of like, I will always succeed? That could be just as true. And now that you have a little bit more space around these thoughts that have been so terrifying, you get to retrain your brain to look for new possibilities. Okay, so I know I've been talking for a while, but those are a couple of tools that I just want you to have in your toolkit. And I'm going to read over some of the comments here. In my case, when the intrusive thoughts come in and I'm filled with shame, I feel a warm rush all through my body, almost like a hot flash must feel. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that's really fantastic observation that you have of like the visceral reaction that your body is having to that thought or those thoughts. And because you have such a fantastic awareness of that already, I know that probably sucks to like realize. I'll be like, oh shit, like, okay, well, I would rather not be. I don't know. I'm speaking how I would in the past. Like in the past, I'd be like, God fucking damn it. Why do I have to feel my body? Like, why can't I just be like a bodiless floating head robot that doesn't have sensations? But here's the thing, sensations are your path to retraining your brain to look for what's good, because the absence of that feeling or the presence of spaciousness, calm, cool, neutral, maybe like a melty warm, maybe it feels like a cool blue in your body. when you finally can hook into and discover a thought that feels that could be just as true. And then you think about how that would play out in your life. If you believed this alternate thought that doesn't scare you, that actually helps you feel calm and motivated, your felt experience in your body is going to be the thing that like helps navigate you towards creating more of that reality ultimately. And I can share more about that in future posts or masterclass. Let's see, I'm going to keep reading these comments. I'm scrolling up a little bit just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Ooh, girl, this is so good. I'm so glad, Jenny Lane. And a hot flash too. Does it help it to go more into the body when the intrusive thought happens? Yes and no. It really depends because something that I'll share a little bit about is that um okay, so on one level, yes, but there's some nuance here and I'm gonna explain how. Okay? So intrusive thoughts, like thoughts happen, they're running, running, running. I'll never succeed, oh, such and such bad thing is gonna happen if I do blah. Right? I don't know what your intrusive thought is, but let's pretend that it's something like that. That does create a felt experience in the body. And I know for me, with my intrusive thoughts on repeat for many years, sometimes when I focused on my body's sensations, um, it was useful for like I did need to be curious about what was happening in my body so that I can really notice the impact of this thought that's just going, going, going. And this is on an individual basis. I would need to work with you one on one to know for sure. Sometimes focusing on the sensations of like panic or anxiety or constriction or churning or heat or whatever it is in your body, sometimes that can be too overwhelming if we don't have a practice of strengthening or carrying with us a loving witness. And let me share with you a little bit about what I mean by that. If you don't have a loving witness that you have kind of built the muscles for and strengthened, I know from my own experience when I hadn't built up that capacity, which is what some of this like these techniques that I've just shown you today, some of that it does help you build up this kind of spacious, calm, clean, clear space where it's easier to be curious, it's easier to be loving. Okay, so the things that we've talked about today do still apply. And it can also be true that sometimes these sensations can be so like take over our whole body that it feels really challenging to find that curiosity, that spaciousness, that openness, and hold like the challenging things that are happening in our body simultaneously. So, what can be useful if you are being curious or trying to be curious about your body sensations, um, but you're kind of getting caught up in it, or it's causing you to catastrophize more, and it's just kind of like amplifying the feeling of anxiety rather than helping to settle it a little bit. The thing that I would really encourage you to do is look for things in your environment that feel neutral to good. So in my case, I'm going to scan my environment really quickly. It can be something that doesn't look stereotypically beautiful. Yeah, what feels really good for me to look at right now? And again, the logical part of my brain is like judging me for this, but it's this like rose water spray. Something about the pink color and the look of the liquid on the inside of it just looks really good to me today. On other days, it's different. So I'm going to set this on the desk in front of me, or actually on my piano. And now, once you find an object like that in your environment, And you're like, oh, that feels neutral to good to look at. The next thing I want to ask you to do, I'm going to put it back over here because the sunlight's different. And I really like how the sunlight was making it look. Where do I feel that in my body? Where do you feel that in your body when you look at that neutral to good thing? For me, when I'm looking at this rosewater spray bottle, again, why? Don't know, but just trust it, follow it. I feel these little like tickly kind of like bubbles in champagne feeling inside my arm, inside my shoulder. I just feel that kind of like bubbly feeling right here. And that feels good. And I just noticed that, right? That feels great. And again, maybe it's different for you, but just notice like, is it warm, cool, texture, color? Like what is the sensation in your body? So, the reason why this can help in moments where you are feeling really overwhelming, um, shoulders higher, chest and back of head when I see the neutral to good object. Okay, cool. So, and I'm curious, like, what are the sensations that are happening in your body? Take it the next layer down. What are the sensations that you're experiencing also? Neutral. Okay. So, and does it feel open? Does it feel flat? Is there color? I'm just like, be really curious about that neutral to good feeling. Tell me more about it. Tell yourself more about it. You don't have to tell me. Also, like bubbles. Okay. Cool. All right. We got bubbles going on here today for some reason. But the reason why I'm trying to rein this back into the thing that you'd brought up earlier, the reason why this can really help when you have like a nice breeze if it was in the body tissue. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for that description. That is so awesome to hear. And the type of the language you're using is very like visceral now. And this is exactly the place that I'm going to invite you to be bringing yourself deeper and deeper into this like felt experience of goodness, felt experience of neutrality. There are so many different, like, infinite varieties of goodness, infinite varieties of neutrality, and your body might have a very specific language of what it tells you feels good or feels neutral. And so now you're kind of like building up your library of what that feels like in your body. In addition to when you are having intrusive thoughts and you're noticing the sensations that are associated with those intrusive thoughts, and then maybe you focusing on them makes you feel more panicked. Guess what? You've got this technique right now in your back pocket that you look for a neutral to good thing, you notice where that lands in your body, what are the sensations, what are the textures, colors, and all of a sudden you have a place in your body that can coexist alongside the churning in your stomach, alongside the constriction elsewhere in your chest, whatever it is. This is a literal way of creating this kind of like calm, neutral spaciousness where you can have that be sitting right next to the sensations of anxiety or the sensations of um, basically that are created by these intrusive thoughts. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I do think that that was a helpful addition, probably for so many people. All right, let me know what landed with you today. And yeah, share your experiences. And before we wrap up, I'm going to tell you that I have a couple of things going on that I'm excited to invite you into. Number one, spring out of bed and own your day. So many of you, high achievers, are high achievers with a people-pleasing bent, i.e., you can get shit done, you can deliver, you can do an excellent job, and a lot of it is motivated by like not wanting to let other people down, always wanting to be the best because you're afraid of like whatever the other person's going to say if day, if you don't do your best. Um, Always feeling like you need to show up perfectly in relationships because, like, if you don't, then they're not going to be there for you, or you're not going to have any friends, or whatever it is. And so this cycle of like always performing for others, I know because I was there for years, can lead to a life where you are just fucking dreading getting out of bed in the morning. You're snoozing the alarm like 5 to 7 times. You have to pump yourself up to go into work and start your day by like chugging 2 coffees and listening to a true crime podcast and I don't know, getting pulled aside by like a billion people and getting tons of Slack messages first thing in the morning. And then your whole day is just like react, 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 not connected to your body, not paying attention to what do I actually want. And then the next day, the dread is there and the cycle continues. I would love to spend an hour with you digging deep into like what are the key mindset shifts, what are the key tools, some of which we've covered today, and we've got more that we can do together too, to get you out of this dread and reactivity and into owning your day. Owning your day looks like creating peace and spaciousness in your body intentionally, actually looking forward to waking up in the morning because you're not dreading your day. Going into work knowing that you have a schedule that's exactly how you want it to look. You have just the right amount of meetings, you have just the right amount of creative time because you have let go of your fears of what would happen if you didn't advocate for that type of life. This is what I know is possible for you in single sessions alone. Some of my clients have had massive transformations. That have like blown their minds. For example, a recent session, someone was like, we've done more in this session than years of therapy. So if this sounds like something that you want, I have the link in bio for that. Spring out of bed and own your day. I would love to see you there. And then the second thing that I want to share with you is owning my day sounds like such a foreign concept for me. It seems like I have to show up for everyone and it's exhausting. Yes, we can totally dismantle some of the beliefs and identities that are like driving this whole cycle of feeling exhausted because it's like I have to show up for everyone. It is so possible to change that. I really want you to know that it's so possible. So, Sala, I think I'm gonna guess that was a typo and maybe you meant to say same, Jenny. Um, but honestly, it's just good to hear that from you both. And I'm here to tell you this can change. I am living proof. My clients are living proof of this. Um, yes, I believe in your healing. Yes, yes. All right, the last thing that I want to tell you about is I'm going to be running an event and I'm going to be sharing this with you, I think, in my stories tomorrow. That is all about drama-free holidays. Okay, I know we're in the US, at least we're approaching the holiday season. This can be a time where if you've been on a healing journey, if you've been learning more about yourself, if you are Samika, Jenny, I'm loving that you're supporting each other here in the comments. Like, this is bringing warm fuzzies to my heart. Yes, it is so possible for you to shift and be able to look forward to your day and just like it's so possible. I know that it's possible for you. I believe it and I'm envisioning it for you. And reach out if you want to do a session together. I would love to be there for you and help facilitate you in a new way. Okay, so drama-free holidays. This is the time where we see family members we haven't seen in a while, and maybe we've changed a lot, and maybe you're drinking less, for example. You're cutting back on alcohol consumption. And then you have a family member make a super shitty comment to you. And your instinctual response is to like kind of shrink in and then use that experience to like dissociate from your body and to like make decisions about drinking and eating that aren't what you want. Or maybe you're telling yourself the story that like, I have to be available at this party. I have to be there for like all 6 hours of the party. Like I can't duck out and do things to take care of myself. This is what I want to help you shift in this event. It's going to be a group experience, virtual, and we're going to talk all about like the expectations that you've internalized of how you have to show up for the holidays, and all these holiday and family events, the what you actually want out of the holidays, and then um, basically processing the emotions and the beliefs that are keeping you in this place of being stuck in the same family dynamics that you've always been in. So we're going to do a little bit of a movement practice, and then we're going to be doing a visioning exercise of like, okay, I want my holidays to look like this. I want to go take walks regularly still. I want to take a moment for myself, once every couple hours out when I'm at a family gathering. Like, I want to step outside. I want to go upstairs to one of the spare bedrooms and, sit and, I don't know, do this neutral to good grounding exercise. I want to XYZ. We're going to basically help you create a customized plan of how you want to support yourself through the holidays so that you can continue to take really good care of yourself and not get sucked into just doing all the different things that your various family members are wanting you to do or show up as, especially when that doesn't align with what's actually really important to you and what your values are. So look at my stories tomorrow for that, because I'm going to be sharing the link for that tomorrow. And I would love to see you there. It's going to be awesome. And it's really like, this is exactly the event that I would have wanted for myself years ago when I was doing a lot of family bullshit stuff of like how to show up in a way that's like where I'm still taking care of myself. So I am so excited to offer that to you. Yeah, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this later, let me know what resonated with you. I would love to hear. Feel free to put it in the comments or send me a DM. And I will see you in the next live, which will be next week. And I'm actually still choosing the time and date for that. I'm going to put a poll up in stories right now to ask what days of the week work best for you and what times would ideally work best for you. Because I am kind of like in a liminal place right now with these lives. I'm wanting to tweak them a little bit to be optimal for my people, which is you. So let me know. Okay, Jenny Lane says, thank you. Yay! I'm so glad you were here. I'm so glad that you're watching this. And yeah, for anyone who's watching this later, I'm so glad that you took the time to take care of yourself at least a little bit today, doing something that's good for you. And I will see you in future posts and in next week's live. Bye for now.